we are here at Astro College and the International Academy of Astrology. My name is Jennifer Barish. I'm the social media coordinator here at the IAA, and I have with me the talented and wonderful, lovely Miss Jodie Forrest, who is a teacher, instructor, magic maker at the Astro College and IAA. And so, Jodie, tell us all about it. Why do we want to come and take this course?
Well, the planets are sort of the movers and shakers of a birth chart. It's the planets that move through the sky. And if we go back to our sort of all-purpose metaphor, as above, so below, planets also move in the chart and they move in our psyche and they move our psyche. So they're just as much as the signs, they are a fundamental building block of astrology. Ancient astrologers first noticed the planets because they moved against the background of the stars. So the ancients decided these must be very important beings, whatever they were, and came up with a lot of ideas about them based on sometimes the mythology of the era that we're talking about. But the mythology of a particular era is usually rooted in the collective unconscious of humanity. The planets correspond to different archetypes. Somebody in any culture will know what you mean if you talk about somebody having a prima donna queen complex. People will know what a queen is, and people will know what a drama queen is. They might have different words for it in their language, but these archetypes are way, way down deep into human history and way down deep into our collective unconscious. Each of the planets has a certain role in the chart. It's like a function of the psyche. There's a function of the psyche that's the human ego, that's the sun. There's a function in the psyche that is reflecting, feeling, needing, being open to subjectivity. And that's the moon, which is rather different than the more active principles that the sun represents. So we divide the planets into the luminaries, the sun and moon, the inner planets or the personal planets, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, the social planets, Jupiter and Saturn, and the outer planets or the modern planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. We also talk about Chiron and the four major asteroids, Ceres, Vesta, Juno, and Pallas Athena.
Okay.
We'll discuss their mythology and their astronomical characteristics, and it's from an interesting amalgam of those two sources that we have come up with modern interpretations of the planets. Everything that we've learned, I love this, in astronomy has been able to help us amplify the meanings of the planets that we work with in astrology. So we talk about the overview of what planets do, and we talk about all of the planets and Chiron and the asteroids. We also talk about, and this is where traditional astrology is invaluable, we assess the condition of a planet. We assess a planet's strengths and weaknesses. A planet will be naturally more at home or less at home in a certain sign or in a certain house or in a certain configuration in the chart. Therefore, it's useful to know just how comfortable that planet is with where it's placed. How easy is it for that planet to do its job, given where it's placed? So there are some very detailed techniques for assessing these things that come to us out of traditional astrology. And I think that knowing how to assess planetary condition has really informed my practice as a modern astrologer, because I can look at a planet and sort of get a sense for, is this planet doing okay? Is it laid back where it is? Does it feel supported? Is it happy? Or does it feel like it's swimming upstream trying to express its function?
Sure.
Yeah. So that helps you when you're doing a reading, understand where some of the glitches that a person feels in their psyche might occur. Like, I have to learn to relate, but I have Venus in a Mars ruled sign. How do I do this? And everybody can learn to do this, but some planets are more comfy with their natal condition than others. And that is useful because it helps you know what planets in the chart you as the astrologer want to support with the client, illuminate for the client, ask the client how it's been for them, get the client to talk about it. We typically need some more insight on planets that are supposed to be more problematic than on the ones that are in their own sign, in their own house, conjunct Jupiter, and lots of other things that make a planet happy. So we will talk about what those conditions are that can make planets happy or unhappy where they are, and how various placements affect the influence and the ease of expression of that planet. Some of them do what they do easily, some of them do what they do rather awkwardly.
Sure.
And as a modern astrologer, I've profoundly believe in free will and our ability to grow and change. So we don't talk about this planet is doomed to be this way. It's nothing like that. It's basically, how happy is this planet? And what could we do to support this planet and help it do its job?
So no Saturn shaming then.
Nope, no Saturn shaming. No Pluto shaming either.
Is there a favorite planet that you like to talk about? Is there something that you feel like everybody ought to really be in tune with in their natal chart, or do you feel like it's just part of a larger spectrum that?
Oh gosh, I think it depends on the structure of each individual chart. If somebody were to sit down and say, well, which planet do modern Westerners seem to have the most trouble with? And I were forced to say something, I'm at gunpoint. I'd probably say probably the moon, because we are living in, as Donna Cunningham put it, a solar world. And one of
Mm-hmm.
her books was Being a Lunar Type in a Solar World.
Mm,
So modern society really emphasizes the sun, Mars, maybe Jupiter in our charts,
sure,
and all
sure.
of the efficiency that can come with a strong Saturn. But
Mm-hmm.
we're not machines. We were issued an emotion chip at birth, and it's the moon. I'm referring to Star
Mm-hmm.
Trek and Data the Android's emotion chip. We are not androids, we do have feelings. And because
I love
feelings
it.
are not rational,
Sure.
they can be hard for some people to become comfortable with. What are my feelings? How can I express them? Where should I express them? The moon basically says, are you happy?
Mm,
And
yeah.
the answers you come up with probably have something to do, at least initially when you're young, with the condition of the moon in your chart.
Mm-hmm.
And as you learn more and more about what you as an individual, separate, unrepeatable human being, just as unique as a fingerprint, you learn more about what makes you happy, not what is supposed to make people happy today, but what makes you happy, which may be very different than what makes other people happy. And you come to accept your moon. You learn to take better care of yourself. You learn to pay attention to your emotions without necessarily surrendering to them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
The sun is our sanity, the moon is our happiness. And I'm sure
Wow.
you met people who were sane but not very happy, and
Right.
people who were happy as clams but not very sane. And it's important to be both. And I do think the modern Western world probably overemphasizes the sun in our lives at the expense of the moon.
Sure. Well, I just got a wonderful lesson on my moon here just in this few minutes. Thank you so much. That's beautiful. I've heard it said we should be doing our moon. So I think you've affirmed that that's an important piece that we need to think about in our natal chart, but also whenever we're trying to do a client reading. So this course is getting ready to start here
Mhm.
in April. Is what did we say? Tuesday nights, April 22nd? Is
Mhm.
how many weeks is the course?
It's 12 weeks.
Okay.
So
So
the
12.
first 10 are information, and then class 11 is
Okay.
review and practice. I always give students a review sheet and a practice exam that we do in class. And
Okay.
then finally, there's the final exam. And I think that going through this course and opening yourself up to the material and recognizing that some of it is complex, some of it is very, very old. It comes to us from different parts of the world and different writers and out of different languages.
Mm-hmm.
But absorbing it will, I think, really help you fine tune your readings because you'll be a little bit more sensitive to how each part of that person's psyche feels. You might have
Sure.
someone with a very happy Mercury and a somewhat confused Neptune, and or the other way around. Neptune is perfectly content where it is, but Mercury is confused.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps you get the nuances of how each planet feels better, I think, than just learning what each planet means and what each sign means. It talks about the fit between this planet and this sign, and their placement in the houses is involved too. So it's about assessing the condition, the relative strengths of the planets as they are in the birth chart, sort of untouched before the person has done anything with them, before they have lived long enough to have put all of these planets into action at one time or another.
Okay.
So what's the natal state of these planets?
That sounds great. And this is the second step of
Mm-hmm.
the natal studies modules. So there is a prerequisite. You have to have
Mm-hmm.
taken the first one right before. So there's a little bit of background knowledge and some real practical application of understanding the basics. So I guess it's beyond we have the basics course, but beyond that, so the first one is the foundations course. So this is the next step up from that. Is that right?
Yeah, I would say so. And it's where we first get into some of the nitty-gritty, some of the nuts and bolts of astrology.
Yeah. So this is for a serious study, really going into depth on each one of the planets and the
Uh-huh.
asteroids. And is there anything else that we want to tell our audience? I'm sure there are additional readings and suggested readings. Is there anything they want to do to prepare to get ready to come into the NAT-2 class?
Well, there is a course book, and
Okay.
that's included with the cost of the course. So it's important to read each section of the course book before we come to class. And
Okay.
also, there are some other course books that we will use more or less throughout the program. And so it's useful to have hold of the Book of Rulerships. It's not
Okay.
essential, but it's helpful. Two books on rulerships, one by Lee Lehman and one by Rex Bills.
Okay.
The Book of Rulerships, that's Lee Lehman, and the Rulership Book by Rex Bills. That can be extremely helpful. And the course book, help me, it's Abelard and Ribeiro, who wrote, Tenets of Classical Astrology.
Mm-hmm.
And that's recommended at the beginning of the natal module. So some of the assignments will be from that book, and it's listed on Moodle, what people will need to know about the
Okay.
course.
Okay.
So
And
having that stuff prepared beforehand helps.
right. Okay. And I do believe new students get an email that tells them, what they want to do to prepare and get ready as well.
Mhm.
I just thought we'd give them a little tidbit here just as someone is considering, okay, yeah, I'm ready to take that leap. I'm ready to take the next step in the course. All right. Well, I guess then we will close here unless there's anything else we forgot to cover. Can you think of anything, Jodie?
There is homework for almost every
Ah,
class.
okay.
And to me, a lot of the homework is fun. Like you're being sent out into the world this week to notice Venus energy in the culture
Uh,
around you. Where are you
yeah,
seeing an ad or overhearing a conversation or whatever that says something about Venus to you? You see this in advertising, you see it in the news. It's remarkable how much you start seeing astrological symbolism all around you when you
sure.
start studying it. I think because I write fiction, I always encourage students to eavesdrop when they are trying to find these things. Just
Uh-huh.
eavesdrop wherever you are. Wouldn't necessarily let on that that is what you're doing. This is Minky.
Minky.
Minky is a Sagittarian with a Sun-Venus conjunction, so he loves everybody. And he has a Scorpio moon, so is quite intense. Yeah. And bonds. He bonds very deeply to his humans. So I have fun sending people out to eavesdrop to find these planetary examples in the world. And it's a good way to train your mind as an astrologer if you sort of assign one part of your brain to always be on the alert for something that you could use to illustrate some part of a reading.
Hmm.
You will pick up a whole lot. And it's a lot easier to stand in line being bored if you're just eavesdropping on the people in front of you and behind you and thinking, am I hearing a planet? Am I hearing a sign? Am I hearing a house? What's happening in that conversation?
Sure.
So the more
Yeah.
you collect examples like that, the more you will have them in your astrologer's toolbox.
Yeah.
Lots of
Well, that
different
sounds
ways to
like fun
describe the
homework.
planets. Yeah, it
That
is
sounds
fun.
like some fun homework. That doesn't seem like too much work at all. That sounds like some homework I'd like to do.
Yeah, it is fun. And when you get into some charts that come from traditional astrology about how to assess planetary condition, there are some things to remember and some things to learn. But I really like that the course has you do the interesting, creative sorts of homework as well.
Sure.
It's
Sure.
more fun. It breaks things up a little bit. Sometimes people come in with hilarious examples. Just really, really funny. Life will give you examples. We had a Saturn-Neptune square a few years ago, and on the day it perfected, the day that it was exact, I noticed in the news that there was a big story about People were endangering themselves by walking along playing Pokemon on their cell phones because they were getting all these Neptunian imageries of other characters around them and other settings. And they were paying so much attention to the imaginary world that they weren't paying attention to whether the light was red or green before they crossed the street. In
Ah,
that case, that's a Neptune Saturn square. I want to be in my imagination, but I don't
uh-huh.
want to die. It's
Real,
the,
real world
yes.
application of these problems of different aspects and how the planets are working on us every
Hmm.
day.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it shows up in the news. It shows up in human interest stories.
Yeah, that's neat. That's neat. Well, I guess we'll get a flavor of this if we take the course and we get going
Hmm.
in April. We said it's a 12-week course. It's on
Hmm.
Tuesday nights, 7 o'clock Eastern time, 4 o'clock Pacific time. And I think that's it. And so if anybody has questions, they can email the International Academy of Astrology at astrocollege80@gmail.com. They can also email Jodie. You want to tell
Hmm.
us what your email is?
Yeah, Jodie Tie, Jodie, T is in Thomas, IGHE, @gmail.com, or mouse, like the little creature my cat is interested in, mouse777 at me.com. They will both reach me.
Okay, that
And I
sounds great.
encourage questions. I don't mind getting questions at all. Questions are how we learn.
All right, everyone, send Jodie an email and ask your questions about this course. We'd love to see you in the planets class. She'd love to have you. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you, Jodie. Thank you, audience watching, and thank you, Astro College, for allowing us to have these courses available so that people can learn more about astrology. I know I sure love it, so I'm sure there are others that do too. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.